Hey guys, it's Krystle back at it again with another video, and today I'm super excited to have back on our channel Sky, who already made a video about his process of getting accepted into Stanford, and you can see that earlier on our channel, but he's back again with us to talk about specifically his experience with DECA and his experiences with entrepreneurship in general. So welcome, Sky. Thank you so much for being on the channel. He's already worked with some of our students. As you guys know, I run a tutoring and academic consulting business, and he's already helped some students get to the finals of DECA, which has been so exciting, and we're so happy to have him on. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content on how to get into or succeed in just about anything that high school students are interested in. That's what we're trying to do here. We already have videos about how to get into different summer programs that are pretty well known, obviously how to get into different colleges like Columbia and Stanford, how to succeed in different kinds of creative writing competitions, for instance. But I think you guys already know that we do a lot of creative writing help, but Sky is here to help show you guys. We also do a lot of working with students who have nonprofits, businesses, are interested in that sort of area. So this is the kind of thing we do here. So if you guys, our viewers, are interested, don't hesitate to get in touch and leave a comment down below about what DECA event sounds the most interesting to you, or if you've already done one, which one it has been.
Yeah, thank you, Krystle. It was great talking with you last time. As Krystle just mentioned, I recently worked with some students in DECA. I had a great time doing that. I learned from that experience as well. And so anything that I can do to help you guys through this and in the future, I'm excited to do.
So yeah, let's dive into it. So could you just describe for people who aren't familiar with DECA, what it's all about, what it entails, what the name means, the highest level in DECA you went to? That would be amazing.
So I'm pretty sure it's technically stands for Distributed Education Clubs of America. I'm also pretty sure that they realized that that's a bad name, so they just changed it to DECA, even though like that's technically what it stood for. I think DECA just sounds cooler, so that's what it is. Basically, it is a widespread, technically international organization that helps students develop business-specific skills. So a lot of it has to do with some industry knowledge, experimentation, all that kind of stuff, but it's all centered around human interactions. So a lot of it is talking to people. A lot of it is practicing talking to people, from walking in the room, making eye contact, introducing yourself, and that kind of stuff, all the way to doing an actual presentation, wrapping up, and then heading out. It's great practice for both professional life as a business person, but also just as a student and a young individual in general. So that's what it's all about. It's about human connections. The highest sort of level, I guess, was my last year. So that's when I did entrepreneurship individual series event, and also the entrepreneurship team decision-making event with a good friend of mine. I placed in both the individual series event as well as the team decision-making event together with my partner. Going to international, we could only choose one. So this might be interesting to some people, but you can only choose one, at least when I did it, to compete in at the international stage. And both of us mutually decided that we would continue doing our individual series events and compete against each other at ICDC. So that's what we did. And that year I was fortunate to be able to place first at the International Career Development Conference in the Entrepreneurship Individual Series event. So that was my best result and my final result as part of DECA.
Going out with a bang, snaps for you. That's so exciting. It sounds like it pretty much runs the gamut of all different skills that you're supposed to develop, which is super exciting. And I know that one big part of DECA is they have a lot of different options and different kinds of fields that you can get into. So which specific DECA events do you have experience in, did you decide to do, and why were you drawn to them, do you think?
So when I first joined DECA, as a first year, the chapters usually recommend to the first years to do principles events. So those are kind of intermediary steps between being completely inexperienced with DECA to doing some of the more complicated events. They're a really great start, but I decided not to do a principles event. And I think that's a totally fine option in case you're interested. So what I did my first year was a marketing event with a partner. And what we did was called advertising campaign. It's now not called advertising campaign. I mean, that was several years ago. So I think they've now changed that into a couple other events that are similar. So I'm pretty sure one of them is called, well, they have like a new category called integrated marketing campaign events. Because advertising campaign was in the marketing cluster, which I'll get into more later. But now they have 3 events in integrated marketing. And then they also have like professional selling. And what that event is a pre-prepared event. And I'm sure we'll get into this more as well, but DECA kind of has 2 different kinds of events. There's like live events where you have a limited time to prepare for your event. You go and talk to someone in person, and that's the entire event. Of course, in addition to a test, there's the prepared events, which is what I did my first year, where actually throughout the year in class, you prepare like a presentation and do a lot of research and practice that presentation over and over again to get a really good, solid presentation, and then bring that to the live judge. Hopefully as presentable and elegantly as possible. So that's what I did, advertising campaign, and it was in the marketing cluster.
That's really cool that you just dove right in. And I have a quick follow-up question to that, since you mentioned that you worked with a partner. Do you always have to do DECA as part of a team, or can you do some events individually?
Yeah, that's a great question. You could do both, and you could do both at the same time. I actually later on in my DECA career. So probably the biggest category, or at least the most emphasized category of events at DECA are called individual series events. And in the name, it's individual. So that's where you go by yourself. But they also have events called team decision-making events, which are basically the exact same thing, except you do it with a partner. And so I did both of those for the same category in one of my other years at DECA.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And within all of that, all the different kinds of competitions, what was your favorite part about DECA?
Yeah, so that's pretty hard to answer, because I guess there are so many, as you just said, different things that you can do within DECA. So there's a lot of like specific like favorite things that I have. So for example, as I mentioned, I started with marketing, but then later I did entrepreneurship, which I found was a much better fit for me. I still like marketing, but entrepreneurship is a little bit better for me. And then those two, compared to the other events, also kind of fit the groove that I was in better. But like in terms of like a single experience or something that if you did DECA, you would get out of it and you would remember for a long time, is the event itself. So when you go to your state competition, or if you go to the international competition, you know, whether you go on stage or not, whether you know, do whatever or not, you will be there and see thousands of other students who are enthusiastic about talking to people, who are ambitious and enthusiastic about sharing themselves and what they're doing. And so those huge events of people who are both similar to you and really different from you in many ways is just, it's like a really unique and exciting event. So I was in debate, speech and debate one year. No hate or special promotion to speech and debate. It's great in and of itself, but the events that you experience at DECA are really like no other school-related, high school focused events in any other extracurricular, in my opinion. So that is unforgettable to me.
I love that. We love peer-to-peer connections. And you mentioned how there's the state and the international competitions. Obviously, DECA has a lot of different sections, and you kind of move up from your region and then you go higher and higher until you're at the international level. So can you kind of explain what qualities you think the judges are looking for at the different stages, and maybe also in the different categories that you competed in, whether that's marketing or entrepreneurship, as well as just anything that you personally have experience in?
Yeah, definitely. I will start that off by saying there's a lot of states. So, you know, it's primarily in the United States, and 50 states. So the different state competitions, I can only speak to one because I only ever did it in Nevada, which is a great state competition because you go to Vegas and you get to like ride Ferris wheels and stuff. But aside from that, I will say that I guess the standardization of judging and that basically the entire organizational process of ICDC, which is the International Career Development Conference, which is the big one, and SCDC, which is the State Career Development Conference. I will say you can expect more consistency at the higher level. So, you know, not if, but when you guys are able to get there, you can have a little bit more peace of mind in terms of, you know, if you've practiced what you should practice, have some faith in the organization of everything. That's not to say the state is not that way, but just know, just as a before I get too deep into it, I will say that kind of the vibe of coaching in both locations can sometimes be different. As for the coaching itself, so from my experience, I did the marketing cluster and the entrepreneurship cluster. I don't believe I was, I actually ended up mentioning it before, but there's also other clusters like hospitality, there's finance, and they're all great and important. But marketing and entrepreneurship are the best. So I did those. But I will say, at least in these marketing and entrepreneurship events where kind of the talking aspect and I guess that connection aspect are especially important when it comes to things within your events and within your role plays, aside from like, let's say, specific metrics or numbers, is being able to, on a meta level, come across to the coach in a way that stands out. And obviously, you know, that is something that you would think you would want to do, is stand out. But the ways that people decide to do that can often determine whether someone really stands out or not. So, you know, if you have a great presentation and you have the facts right, yeah, it'll make you stand out amongst some people, hopefully. But there's going to be a lot of people who are also very well practiced, who are, you know, who know what they're talking about. So how do you kind of fit that magical puzzle piece into the picture that lets you almost, without breaking the fourth wall, break the fourth wall of saying, okay, you know, as a competitor in DECA, I'm also not just doing this for, you know, the club or like for getting an assignment done, but in the spirit of DECA, doing this for finding that human connection or learning about business or sharing my passion about something. Often that comes in the form, you know, everybody does this differently, but one specific example I like to give is in marketing, for example, which you have to do in other events oftentimes anyway, is to display like experience, personal experience. So depending on the viewers of this video, some might already have experience in DECA and some may not. But the way that, for example, an individual series role play would work is you sit down for like 10 minutes and you get a scenario, and it's like, you are the business owner of X and this is your predicament, and you'll read that and you'll have a limited amount of time to come up with a way that you can present to, let's say, for example, a consultant or a business partner or whichever character your judge would take on. How do you bring your real life experience as a student, you know, breaking the fourth wall, into that role play, not confining yourselves to within the walls of that. And that's, to me, how you're able to stand out. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But if you have any specific questions about that, yeah.
That's perfect. And you mentioned not if, but when. Obviously, for the viewers, your chances of when go up if you're working with someone experienced. So that's what this guy does. He's fabulous. Email us. But yeah, getting even slightly more specific into that. Obviously, like you said, probably the people watching here either have some experience with DECA or want to have experience with DECA. So what's one thing that they can do to maximize their chances of getting into the finals, specifically moving up in the world in DECA?
Yeah. So there's well, to get to the finals per se, that's once you are at the international conference. And so, you know, if you're when you're able to get from state to international, the competition is actually interesting because the amount of people just like goes up, right? So depending on the event, because there's so many different events, depending on the event that you choose, you might have like an oddly large or an oddly small amount of competitors at the state level. But then at the international conference, like the last one that I went to had like 13,000 students competing. And given that that's across the different events, there were still over 100 people like in my event alone. And that was more than at state. And so keeping that in mind, really, once you're at that international conference, hopefully as many chances as you get to go there for 4 years. Each time you'll learn, but one thing is that once you kind of, I guess, at least in my chapter, people would kind of switch modes after getting to that stage. And what I mean by that is earlier in the year, you have the state conference, which everybody tries their best in. And the people who were able to advance will sort of like double down on their study in between state and international. But in order to do really well at, I guess, the international stage, it's kind of taking what you did at state and kind of flipping it over and criticizing it a lot. At least that's what I like to do, because the competition, not only in terms of numbers, but also, you know, the seriousness, I guess, at which people are competing goes up by a lot.
Yeah, that is super helpful. And in our last meeting together, we talked about how you kind of had this interest in entrepreneurship just throughout your life as well. And you feel like that in some ways influenced you going to Stanford, right? So I was curious, do you think that DECA, which obviously has that entrepreneurship aspect to it, in any way, well, do you think it helped you get into Stanford in any way? And if so, do you think that's more like an individual activity that you really did well in and helped you stand out? Or do you think it's more part of an overall narrative, like your general package, who you are, Sky, the entrepreneur, Sky, the student, Sky, the whatever? And do you think that it also influenced where you decided to apply or what you wanted to major in any way?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. And I would say like basically yes to everything, but the nuances are as follows. I think the reason why you know, because people do DECA, obviously, like it's like a school extracurricular, right? And as close or as you know, focused on business as it is very different. You know, like business doesn't work where you like apply for like some competition and like compete like against other students, like doing role plays. But it does have many merits that show in the rest of your life. I'll say, I kind of mentioned this before, but I'll say in terms of college specifically, one leads to another. And by that, I mean, DECA and entrepreneurship being part of my sort of personal package. And that being a true scenario, you know, not just presentation or, oh, I'm doing it for whatever, but like, you know, me having fun with it and also pursuing my personal business ventures aside from it. That package is what leads, at least in my case, I believe, what helped me become more successful in DECA without viewing it as, you know, another extracurricular to do or something like that. Just more so that one extracurricular that I really like doing and that I think supplements what I'm interested the most in my life. So they feed off of each other. So it's not like one that'll get you into college or the other that'll get you into college. It's like having the package leads to more success within that extracurricular, I would say, and that encourages you to learn more. And, you know, obviously it helps you feel better about yourself. So it kind of builds up together. And I think in the end, both things will stand out on your resume. I think the core here is not starting with the end, in terms of like, what do I want to like turn this into for my future? So what do I want to turn this club into, like on my resume or something like that? It's, oh, like I want to join this club because I think it'll help me or it'll be interesting in its own right. And combining that, I guess, again, with the rest of your package is where to start. Because in the end, I think that'll find, at least in my case, more genuine success in both numbers and just overall enthusiasm and happiness in the end.
Yeah, that's great. And I love how you're focusing on authenticity, right? I think that's so important that you really authentically love it. Like you shouldn't go into DECA just because you think that you should be a business person or that's what colleges are looking for. But if you go into it with that true passion and you love it, and then you just delve into it as deeply as you can, with DECA or with anything, that's really where your passion will shine and you'll be able to achieve awesome things. Like over here at my Ivy education, that's what we focus on so much, right? Like we've helped people get into Stanford, Columbia, where I'm at, and Princeton, all the different Ivies and that kind of school. But we would never tell someone, oh, try out this specific competition that has nothing to do with your area of interest just because it'll look good. Like there's no such thing. There's no one set path. And for you, you had that interest. And I'm so glad you were able to follow it. I think that's fabulous. So do you think that DECA made you a better entrepreneur? Because like we talked about in our other video together, you actually have started a couple of businesses of your own. So do you think that there was any overlap between those? And if you want to tell viewers about what your entrepreneurship experience is, that would be awesome, because I'm sure that we have a lot of people out there who would be interested in having a mentor for entrepreneurship as well. And if you want to provide that for people, then that's something that people can definitely contact us about for sure.
Yeah, totally. The other stuff that I've been involved with, I've co-founded two businesses. So the first one is called Garage Sofa Games. We're very casual. I co-founded this with some guys actually from when I was in middle school, but I ended up working on it throughout high school. And I'm still working on it from time to time, but it's become more of a passion project for the time being. But we make tabletop games. And that I started before I did DECA. Right now, I'm working full-time as one of the co-founders of a sports tech company. We're called Pocket Pro, but we might, we're still very early. So that's basically a project name for now. And we're looking into making software and apps to help athletics. I'll say that, again, talking about real life experience in conjunction with DECA, doing both was definitely beneficial for both. So having started Garage Sofa Games and had a little bit of that experience before joining DECA, actually my very first that advertising campaign project event for DECA was an advertising campaign for a product that I had just made and funded from Garage Sofa Games. So I literally used my own product as the product in my DECA campaign. And so that worked perfectly because I mean, it's supposed to be a real product, at least in that event. And so when someone asks you like, so, like, what is this process or what is that process regarding the product? Because I did it, I knew everything. And I could say, yeah, so actually it is my product. It was actually kind of weird because I think a lot of people didn't, like they didn't know if I was like role playing that or if it actually was, but it actually was. So that was good. It worked well for us. So I'll say that experience definitely brought that sort of outside experience into DECA that hopefully made judges sort of think, okay, well, this person is saying the right things, but also for the right reasons, because he knows the reasons why he did this because this is his product kind of thing. So, you don't need to like make a product or something, but immersing yourself in your interests outside of DECA and finding ways to pull that into your events, again, adds like the rapport and credibility. So yeah, definitely experiences outside benefit DECA. The other way around, for me personally, the biggest benefit of doing DECA were two things. So one was I was the chapter president for a year. And that's like the only kind of like school related, like chapter or like, student council or whatever kind of position that I held throughout like all of high school. And so just having that experience and meeting with people every week and being responsible for like creating the curriculum for the class and everything was something that I hadn't experienced before. And so I think, going through that helps me just like, I guess, learn about DECA itself more from a different perspective, but also just apply general like organizational skills, negotiation skills and things in other areas of my life. So that was one. The second one is that since DECA has so much to do with talking to other people, and oftentimes like, you're in high school, especially if you're like a freshman, sophomore, you're talking to these judges who are like business professionals, who are like adults. So like I'll sit down at some like table and there's like some like 55-year-old dude like, so who are you? And I think just being exposed to that over and over again. This also depends on how your chapter practices, but being exposed to the judges who you're practicing with at home, and then the judges at the actual event, and getting like real feedback from them is just I guess a great way to reduce kind of that anxiety of the unknown. So that's a really big thing. In terms of like specific business strategy and like how to run a startup or things like that, I would say the best way is probably to just try it. But I would much rather go into that knowing that I have the experience that I attained from just talking to people, being under pressure situations with limited time, limited preparation, and that kind of stuff. I'd much rather go into business knowing and having that experience than not. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, probably worth a lot more than 2 cents. But it sounds like DECA was definitely helpful in like getting you into that sort of leadership mindset, which is so important. And for our final question, if there's one last piece of advice that you could leave the viewers with who want to participate in DECA, what would that be?
Yeah. Okay, that's a tough question because there's a lot of disorganized thoughts that I have from the amalgamation of like all my experiences. When you go into DECA, probably the best thing that I did for myself was treat it with a really kind of open mind and with no expectations. And because DECA is so dynamic, right? Like every role play that you have is a conversation, and all of those conversations are going to be different. It depends on so many factors. And the fact that like the essence of DECA is that conversation. I think that open-mindedness allowed me to not only enjoy the experience more, but also find more zeal for doing it and more success, therefore.
That's amazing. And with that, thank you so much for coming and talking with me, Sky. Sky's actually in Seoul right now, where there's literally a 13-hour difference between us. So thank you so much for also coming on with that crazy time zone difference. So much appreciated. I think that this will be really helpful for people, either whether they've done DECA in the past and want to improve or are getting into it for the first time. And once again, Sky is here to help, so do not hesitate to get in touch with us. I'll put our email up on the screen. All the contact info will be in the description box down below. And thank you again so much, Sky. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day or night, and I hope that we have you back on here again really soon.
Of course, and thank you so much again for having me, Krystle. It's great to talk with you, and I hope that whatever I say, someone can glean some information from. So thanks to all the people watching as well.
I'm sure they will. Yes, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.